Um, cool. So I guess we can just get started. Mainly, most of the questions are going to be about your work in Shakespeare, but I also was reading through your bio and saw sort of the like arts activist and
Hmm.
the Mia theater company things. So I also want to talk about those.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
Great. So I guess my first question is, I was reading one of your interviews from the Gasper project, and you mentioned that you started like performing and storytelling in like '93. So I was wondering when you got involved with Shakespeare and sort of what inspired you to.
Um, I don't remember the exact year. I started storytelling in '93, and then shortly after that, storytelling. That's a very circuitous route to the stage. All right, I didn't do theater and didn't have a. I went to a high school that didn't have a theater program, so I didn't do it in college. I've always been a fan. Didn't do it early on, but when I got a gig at the Richland Library telling stories, that led a route, laid a path for me to get to stage as a performer, as an actor. So that was in '93. So I don't know exact date. It must have been about '96, '97, maybe. I think I did my first. No, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. I think it might have been right around 2000. I think I may have done my first. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mike. I can't remember exactly when it was late '90s, late '90s, 2000. I did my first uh, Shakespeare. And one of the reasons I want to do is I've always been a fan of Shakespeare. Like I said, even though my high school didn't have a theater program, we that was one of the classics, which is now being reconsidered what is classic and what is not classic, which I love. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But it was Chaucer, Shakespeare, all from that canon, all the great English writers, um, and I was the kid who was always amped to read Shakespeare in class. Nobody else liked it. Everybody was like, because of the language and everything. But I've always loved, since I was a kid, I've always loved stories. I've always loved storytelling. I grew up a big comic book nerd, uh, mythology nerd. At that time, really Greek and Norse mythology were all that really accessible to us. But as time passed on, I got more familiar with the Orisha. I have friends who are Santeria and all, just stuff, just stuff. So when we were reading Shakespeare in class, I loved it. I loved it. So when the local Shakespeare company approached me about performing, I was like, yeah, cool. I wanted to do that. And plus, to be totally honest, Shakespeare is a prestige format. As an actor or also as an audience member, whether it's wrong or right, when people see you doing Shakespeare, they have certain thoughts about you and your ability, whether that's wrong or right too. So the fact that it was, like I say, the kind of prestige genre within theater was also attractive. But I really just love the stories also. I just love the stories. Love the language. I love the language. And that's why I think it gets so much prestige, because it is the closest thing you could get to still speaking English, but speaking a foreign language. You know, there's almost like a code you have to crack. You can understand iambic pentameter and all those things all you want, but it's still understanding where you are in the moment, where that character is in the moment. Make it like I can't stand to see, like, it's still a play. Like, I can't, one of my big beefs is I can't stand to go see performance and people doing Shakespeare instead of a play.
Okay.
People putting all this import on the language and the breathing and it's just like, this is boring as hell. But to take that language and make it live and make it breathe and take those characters through whatever the situation, whatever the moment is, whether it be funny or tragic or whatever, I just dug it. I just dug it. I get amped up just to talk, thinking about it. Which is one of the reasons I was amped to talk to you, because to be totally honest, I don't get a chance to talk with black people a lot about what I do. I mean, we have an audience. Of course, we have a black audience, but it's rare. I think this may be the first. You may be the first black person. You may be the first black interview I've done about Shakespeare. I've done interviews,
Right.
but you're the first, whether it's Black media or Black academia or whatever, you're the first. And so thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was sort of, a lot of the people in my class are doing artists who specifically work in sort of like New York or the like
Right.
California area. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the Atlanta area. So I was
Okay.
specifically looking for people um, in
You
the
were
South.
looking. Oh, cool. Very good. Very, because yeah, of course you want to look at, the famous stages are elsewhere, just to be honest.
Mhm.
And of course there's great talent there. But there's great talent everywhere. Like here, um, my company, Shakespeare Company. I mean, I'm a member of the company. I'm a company member. My
Right.
company is Nia, but anyway, um, there's a core within that company that are good as anyone anywhere. And then it goes out and it gets weaker and it gets weaker and it gets weaker. And by the time you get all the way out to the outside, it's kind of pretty weak, to be totally honest. But there's a core of members who are either now in the company or have been in the company that are as good as anyone anywhere. But it's not, it's not New York. It's not even DC or Chicago or even Oregon with their whatever. But yeah, there's good work being done all over the place.
Right. Right.
And
Awesome.
not so good work too.
As long as they enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I sent in the email a question of asking of whether you're familiar with Keith Hamilton Cobb or Deborah Ann Bird's work, primarily because they focus on like the actor's experience with performing Othello. So I wanted to ask you
Not
questions.
not with the latter, but with the format. Familiar is all, though. I don't know. I've heard of it, and it's like, oh, that's cool. I want to go, and I never did, of course. But yeah, I've heard of the former text, but the latter I hadn't even heard of. So thanks for sharing that with me. Like I should have been reading that over the pandemic, maybe. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a physical text of the
Mm-hmm.
Deborah Ann Bird piece. We would watched it for class, but there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a physical text for American More.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, yeah. So I was wondering if you could speak a little to your experience with performing Othello. I saw it in your resume. It feels so weird to talk to someone like knowing some of their experiences without actually knowing them.
It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Um, Othello for me, to be totally honest, Othello for me was one of my. I wanted that to be a do over for me. That was not, I thought, one of my better turns. To be totally honest, it rounded out, I thought, into a good show. Um, but it never met my expectations. My expectations, just to be honest, with myself and with my fellow castmates, it was loaded. It was that core that I talk about that is as good as anybody anywhere. It was that core. And opening night was not a disaster at all and acceptable by most people's standards, but unacceptable by my own and some of my castmates also. Um, and we rounded out within a show or two. We rounded out into having a good show. I think we had a very good show, but I was always disappointed because I thought that show could have and should have been great. But it showed me a bunch of, I learned a lot from one thing. I pushed that show with a bit of arrogance. Um, to be totally honest, there were certain aspects about that character. I don't know if what they speak on in these other pieces, but there are certain aspects about that character. There's certain things about the story and the character I just really didn't, I guess, didn't get, to be totally honest. And um, I I thought I wasn't getting it from my director either. It's like, oh, I'm not really understanding this, and I was talking with the director, not really getting it. But I was like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it. I thought I was director proof. I
Okay.
thought if I come out here and I do my thing, I'm going to be fine. Because I was arrogant, because it's me. But I had things. I was a new father, a relatively new father then, so I had plenty of distraction at home. Um, I still had a day gig then, so I had that going on. That wasn't different from any other time. It just seemed to be a tumultuous time for me, and I did not connect with the character as I should have, and I knew that even, but I was arrogant enough to think I would work it out in performance,
Mhm.
and that didn't happen. You know, like I said, it wasn't a disaster. It was a good show. It was a good show, but it was not a great show. And I wanted a great show.
Got it.
Um, I'm sorry, you're about to say something.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if you had any sort of like set opinions about the character. Othello going in, I know you were saying that there were certain things about him that you didn't quite click with.
Yeah,
Do you mind like expanding on that?
I think it's written from the perspective of, what, 400 years ago, Shakespeare. The whole idea that the Moor is the outsider.
Mm.
That's easy enough to say, but I don't know if the text supports it in a real meaningful way. Um, and I think even like I'd read that Morgan Freeman had struggled with that role before also. That's interesting. It seemed to be it's hard to really out of context, like it seemed not like a black character
Mm.
almost to me. It almost seemed whitewashed in a way. Now, like I said, you got to have to take context because it's 400 years ago. It's written for a particular audience. And of course, it's not going to be like, and I mean, that's part of my job as an actor to, if there aren't connections there to find, well, there are always connections. If it's a human character or the character has human characteristics, there are connections. It's my job to find them. And I don't think I did as good a job as possible at finding them. But also, I think, the more is celebrated because he's Shakespeare's, black character, the black canon. But I think the more should be questioned a little bit too. I think he should be questioned a little bit. I think it's a rather, I don't know if Shakespeare was trying to flex and trying to show I could write a black character or whatever, but there was much about him that rang hollow to me,
Mm.
and I never really connected with. And it wound up kind of, tripping me up later, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that wasn't a great answer. That wasn't the most precise answer.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. This is about you telling me about your experience in any way that you can. Yeah, that's something that I think that we've like read a lot about in class in the way that Othello is a black character, yes, but he was a black character written to be played by a white person, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
uh, sort of a lot of the works that we've read with people sort of reconnecting themselves, like Keith Hamilton Cobb and Deborah Ann Bird, reconnecting with Othello has been them sort of um, thinking about the ways in which their lives sort of coincide with the way that Othello sort of ingratiates himself with the people around him, but is still, oh, what am I trying to say? Like
He's
he's
othered no matter what.
right. But he sort of thinks he's a part of it, but it sort of pulls apart as the play goes on, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and we talked a lot about how even playing that part can sort of, um, I don't know, in some ways perpetuate some of the things that are the parts about what the sort of blackness that Shakespeare is playing up in the play.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one of the things. Like I said, it's one of the rare opportunities I've had a chance to actually talk about this, other than wrestle within my own head. I think Shakespeare gets celebrated like I said, because he wrote a black character and he's supposedly playing up blackness in it. And there's not a whole lot that's black about. I don't know what black is 400 years ago. Of course, I'm not there historically, but there is, there's racial memory. There's, there's a lot of things for me to go off. I played other black characters from, antiquity and felt more connected, you know, where I found myself in that show doing a thing that I talked to you about, just kind of performing, you know, instead of really connecting and really like, just feeling this dude. Who is this dude? What's going on? What's going on with him? Oh, this. I found myself kind of falling back on like I said, those bad Shakespeare performances. I talk this way and I walk this way, and my arm sweeps this way, and a lot of it just didn't. I just didn't connect. And like I said, and plus I think also my director, I couldn't go to my director and have this conversation because she just couldn't understand it. She was a white woman and she just could not, there's no malice in place because she directed me in other shows and we did great work together, I think, but I think Othello, it's its own kind of particular thing.
Right.
And at least for me, I missed. Like I said, I think I missed, if I'm being totally honest with myself, by the standards that I set for myself. And that's even setting ego to the side, not being, oh, I'm the great, but no, you do have standards for yourself. And by my own standards, I missed. And it was still performance worthy and people came and had a good time. But I know it just wasn't what I was accustomed to. It was not what I was accustomed to.
Gotcha. I also think you maybe answered one of my questions already, talking about your sort of like dynamic with your director in the play.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the reality is, for the most part, you work in this business, you're going to be working with white directors, you know, um, no matter what the material, you're mostly working with white directors. So, and plus, like I said, people are people and you connect. Some, hopefully, I always think it's my gig as an actor, because I'm a director too. So I kind of see both sides. But as an actor, it's my gig to form at least a connection where we could talk about what the director wants, even if he or she doesn't even know. It's my gig to help them find what they want. But it's also my gig, also obviously, to bring that character to life and bring my truths to that character.
Right.
So, as far as just knowledge, and that's so she had and still has far more just academic historical knowledge about Shakespeare and these characters. That's kind of what she does. She's a Shakespearean. Um, um, but knowledge in itself, this is art. And like I like to say, the best part of art is the part that you can't define. You could quantitate, you could qualify, you could do all these things, break it down. We could talk about technique and all these things. And all those things are correct. There's a methodology, no doubt. But the thing that makes it, people shy away from the word magic or soul. Like once someone told me in a very apologetic way that Nia had a lot of soul. And I took it as the greatest compliment because I know we have all those other things too. Like I said, it's art. It's beyond communication. So it is all those things, intellect and intuition, and I don't shy away from those. Now everybody wants to be, like say, everybody wants to quantify everything. You have to validate everything. Can I prove it? Can I not prove it? Well, you can't prove that. That's a great piece of art. I said, no, but I can see it and I can feel it. And if you come, you can see it and feel it too. So in that way, I think we were hamstrung a little bit because we didn't have I don't mean, I'm not trying to throw her on the bus at all. Like I said, we've done other work together and we've done great work. And she's helped me out a lot. But in that particular situation, I don't think we had a common language. So I just couldn't make the connections, or I did not make the connections.
Gotcha. All right, I guess moving away from Othello a little bit. Was the experience of playing Othello versus what Don Pedro and Much Ado About Nothing like a non? I mean, okay, it's been a long time since I read Much Ado About Nothing, but sort of like non-racialized character. Is it a different experience?
Oh yeah. I mean, Don, it's Much Ado About Nothing. You know, it's Shakespeare's silliness.
Right.
You know, it's a comedy. And actually, that was my first Shakespeare.
Okay.
It's my first Shakespeare. So it's all that. And it was the cast. That was a great cast. That was a great cast also. Um, and it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Um, and one of the things, actually, that was the show that seduced me. Here, the Shakespeare Company, like a lot of places, we perform in one of the local parks, an
Okay.
amphitheater.
Yeah.
And I think it was opening night in that park. The park had double booked. So there was a reggae festival across the lake
Mhm.
going on, and we were supposed to go on. So I think they worked out something with the reggae festival, ended 30 minutes early, and we went on 30 minutes late or whatever. We worked it out. So what happened was a lot of the people from the reggae festival funneled over to our show. And so we had the Shakespeare Stalwarts. And then when we used to perform in the park, one of the things I used to love, we used to have a large homeless community that would come and see us. And like, you get to know, like, what's up, dude? It was just, and when I remember walking from backstage and looking out on the audience, and I don't know how many that amphitheater seats, but it seats, I'll say 1,500 people or whatever. And it was packed and it was overflowing. And some of the richest people in Colombia were literally sitting right beside homeless people. And people were there from the reggae festival, and people were there, with their families, with the carriages, and it was just this smattering of humanity. And I was like, yeah, that's it just felt so good. It just felt so I wasn't a company member at that point. So
Right.
after I did that show, they asked me to join the company. And that show really seduced me. It's like, yeah, because that's what I want. I don't, art makes everything better. I don't believe in art is for a privileged group. I don't
Mhm.
believe it's for only the educated. I don't believe it's just for people. If you're a person. Now, you may not dig everything. There's a lot of art that I don't dig. Some of it I don't dig because I'm ignorant. I don't know enough about it. There's a lot of art. Color field painting. When I first was exposed to color field painting, I didn't get it. I was like, this whatever. But as I got to know more about the some of the practitioners and some of the work itself, I could look with different eyes and see different things and appreciate different things. You know what I mean? So um if you don't dig what I'm doing, that's cool with me. Mostly I just feel like if you knew more, you probably would. But I think most people would dig what I do, even if you don't know. But art, I love sharing. I love sharing art. I love, like I said, it was everybody. It was old people, young people, black, white, Asian, Latin, you name it. If it was in Colombia, they were there that night. At least I felt like they were there that night. And it was beautiful. And so that play always has a special place in my heart for that reason. For that reason. And like I said, and plus it was a comedy. And Don Pedro he's a great character. He's a great character. You
Mhm.
know, um, you get to be, a little dangerous and a little, uh, you look good. That makes sure you have a good costume because you're the prince.
Mhm.
Um, you get to have fun. You get to have some fun scenes. You get to have some dangerous scenes. You get to have some scenes with some good sexual tension. It was just fun. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, a lot of my friends were in that show, but a lot of really good talented people. My friends were really good talented. So that was a very enjoyable experience. That was a very enjoyable experience.
It does sound amazing. So I guess, is there a Shakespeare role that you ever wish you were cast in, or that you hope to be cast in the future?
Yeah, yeah, I do. It's a funny story. So we did the Scottish play. We did Macbeth. I
Okay.
have to say that first. We did Macbeth. Now with COVID, I guess it must be like 3 years ago, maybe now, or right. This past year just messes up everybody's math.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, this is kind of stereotypical, but it's that way. It's cliche. Some things become cliche because they're truths. That's my favorite Shakespeare play. It's
Okay.
my favorite for obvious reasons. And my favorite Shakespeare character is Macduff.
Okay.
But I think possibly the best Shakespearean role is Macbeth. So when we we're auditioning for that, I actually initially got cast as Macbeth.
Okay.
But I like I said, I have my own company. I have a lot of this is my hustle. I'm a full-time artist. I'm a full-time theater artist. Like I said, I've gone through periods when I had a day gig, but for the past 10 years plus, I've been a full-time theater artist. So the director was a little concerned about my commitment to the role. Just literally, how much time do you have? There are only so many hours in a day. This is a big role. But if you're gonna hustle, I take up 3 or 4 big roles at a time anyway. But I
Mm.
can understand her trying to protect her show. So she was like, you know, um, she just told me, frankly, I'm uncomfortable with you being Macbeth because I just don't know how much time you'd have to give me. And it's like, okay, cool. So I was figuring, okay, cool, peace, have a good show. She's like, but what about Macduff? I was like, well, that's my favorite Shakespeare character. Because, like,
Mm.
like I said, I grew up a nerd. I grew up loving comics and all this. And Macduff always felt to me like a superhero.
Okay.
Born out of woman. Shakespeare, excuse me, Macbeth has his protective spell on him where he can't be felled by man, born of woman. And
Right.
Macduff is like the only one. He was always kind of this other, he's real regular until the end. It's like, oh. So that's like, that's my favorite Shakespeare character. And I've always thought as Macduff, like, he was the one that would do right. Out
Mm.
of everyone else, he was the one. He was incorruptible. He was the one that would do right. And he had the most, after his family gets killed and all that. I like Macduff. I've always liked Macduff. So I
Right.
said, she's like, well, what about Macduff? Because she's like, I want you in the show. You got to be in the show. And she's like, what about Macduff? And it's like, well, that's my favorite character. Anyway, so wound up, I played Macduff against another actor who played Macbeth. He did a fine job. I had a great time, and we killed it. It was a good show. It was a really good show. We killed it. And at the end, I got to hold up Shakespeare's severed bloody head. Oh man, it was so cool. It was so we had um a local artist mold uh head of Shakespeare. And of course he did the dripping blood and all that stuff. And I would every night I would come on stage with that head after the fight, and I had that dripping bloody head. And the director's like, okay, you're milking that a little bit too much. I was like, okay. But as the one time I was like, whatever. Watch this. You thought it was long last night. Watch me tonight. It was just so much fun, man. It's like, how many times am I going to get a chance to stand on stage with a severed head? I was
Right.
like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to push me off this stage. But it was fun. It was a good show. So yeah, but still, I would like to play Macbeth
Okay.
because I still think that's a great character. It's just a great character.
Right. I totally relate to your I read Macbeth in high school, and as soon as you get to the bit where it's like he can't be defeated by woman born of man, and Macduff was like, I was a C-section baby. I was like, oh my gosh, me too. I can also defeat Macbeth.
So
Uh,
you're Macduff.
uh,
Have you ever done any theater?
I haven't. I have massive stage fright. I don't think I could ever. But I really enjoy reading characters in class settings.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay, so I've run up the time that I initially asked for. I do have a couple more questions, but if you have to go, I completely understand.
I'm here. Like I said, thank you. I'm enjoying this. I blocked out. I mean, I ain't I don't have a commitment for another 30, 40 minutes, which is unusual for me.
Okay. So these are questions less about your work in Shakespeare, but more about the things that I thought were really cool in your bio.
Hmm.
Could you talk a bit more about what it means to be an arts activist?
For me, an arts activist is I try to live what I call a purpose driven life.
Okay.
So, art is what I do. My official training is actually as a visual artist. I have a
Okay.
Bachelor of Arts in studio studio arts. And that's like I say, I've kind of meandered to the stage. So I do a lot of visual art stuff, and I work with whatever we're calling this week, disenfranchised, underprivileged, whatever communities. I work with seniors. I really believe art makes things better. So I try to take art to places where it's not. And I try to be very active in that. But not only that, I try to serve on like panels. One of the
Okay.
things that's always kind of I always had like a little burn about was we always, we're always having these panels discussions about, whatever, inequities, injustice, whatever. And always at these panel discussions, we always have represented always the political class, the clergy, criminal justice, legal class, the money class. Nobody ever invites the artist. And the only time you get invited as an artist is if you're famous and or rich and famous. If you're an artist out here in the streets doing your work, applying it to, you know, people people devalue your work. Only people think your work only has value if there's a dollar amount attached to it and something that they could be impressed with. But I tell people all the time, we won't get the results we're looking for without the artists at the table. We're the storytellers of the community. We house the community's soul. We house the histories. We dream the futures.
Okay.
We salve the present. So I'm like, I find myself on a lot of these panels. I find myself on a lot of these panels talking about this stuff, talk about everything. And I'm lucky enough, I've worked with every kind of person from literally 3-year-olds to 93-year-olds. A large part of my practice is with young people. But a large part of my practice is with older people. I've been lucky to do a lot of different things. And one of the things I find with older people, I call them the shelf people. They've gotten old, they're retired. We think they're no longer productive, and we put them on the shelf. And they are so happy when someone takes them off that shelf and engages them and allows them to make their contribution. So I've been lucky enough to do that. I've been lucky enough to work with young people I've just been lucky. I've just been lucky. So for me to be an arts activist is to take some of those things I just talked about, whether it's, teaching class or performing for or performing with or lecturing in a class or speaking on a panel or consulting a group about art. And I'm not into frivolous things. I'm not into, oh, this will make me famous or this. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm opposed. But that's not my main pursuit. Or just doing something purely for the money. That's just kind of I have to be careful saying that because it makes it sound like oh money. I'm not frowning on those things. And if they come my way and when they come my way, I am happy. But like I said, I try to live a purpose driven life, and I try to apply my skills as they are where I think they can work.
Yeah. My last question is I was wondering what inspired you to start the Nia Theater Company.
Oh, Nia.
Yes.
That was pretty easy. Early in the beginning, the first year I started acting, actually, um, I'd done 3 plays. I was in my third play before I'd ever had an acting class.
Okay.
I went to an audition on a clown. Like I said, I was a storyteller, so I'd gone to a school and I told stories. And one of the parents there was like, "Oh, I love your work. What theater do you work with?" And I said, "Theater." She's like, "Yeah, you're an actor, right?" I said, "No, I'm not an actor." She's like, "Oh, you're an actor. You just don't know it."
Mm.
And she's like, "Do you mind if I pass your name along to some of my friends?" I was like, "Sure, I bet." I didn't think anything of it because that happens all the time. You come off stage and people are like, "Oh, you're great. How come you're not famous?" No, people get amped up and excited and then they go home. So I didn't think anything of it. But a few months later, I got a call from the local theater Trusted, which is like the theater here. And they asked me to come in for an audition. And I went to the audition. Pure on the climb. I remember I told a friend of mine, I was like, "Yo, I went." They used to always, on every sitcom, there used to be an actor character. And he or she would always talk about they had an audition. They had this an audition because they're set in New York a lot of times and they're going on auditions. And I was like, I just want to see what that's about. I just want to, because I always been that type of dude, like, oh, I'll try this. Um, so I remember telling a partner of mine, it's like, yo, man, who knows? I might walk out of here with a part. And I did. And then when I was doing that show, I got offered another part and I did that. And then I was doing that show, I got offered the part of Bernard in Boys in a Band. And Bernard was gay. And I was like, oh, like, can I do that? So I talked, excuse me, a couple of friends of mine, and I did it. And when I did it, I had gay dudes hitting on me for like 2.5 years. Dudes just walking on the street, and we'd be talking and say, I say, "Oh, yo, that's cool, thank you, man. I'm straight, right?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I know you did." They had no idea. They were just trying to. So after that, after I did Bernard, I thought, well, damn, I must be pretty damn good at this. Because at that point, I was still I consider myself a visual artist who was cheating with theater. And after that, I was like, okay, so Trusses had what was in an African American acting workshop, and I enrolled in that. And I took some formal acting classes while I was still working and performing. And then out of that came a small core of us who we just kept meeting and kept replicating the things that we are doing at Trusses. But the goal was to create roles for Black artists. It wasn't even artists of color then. It was Black artists. So we didn't have to wait for somebody to call us like, "Hey, we got a part for you. You got a cool Black chick you can sit over here. We got one part." It's like, no, we're gonna make our own. We're gonna make our own work. And from day one, I've just kind of led that group. We call it the creative director because I do a lot of things. So from day one, I've led that group, and that was in 2023 will be our 25th anniversary. So the idea is to supply opportunity for actors who wouldn't normally get it. So there's a big teaching phase. We have a lot of people. I'm really proud to say we've got a few people who came to our company we got one dude who came to our company had never seen a play.
Oh, wow.
Never seen a play. And now he's been one of the featured characters on television. He's done a lot of movies. We've got other actors who've gone on, and we've got actors who've done basically everything. And we have people who are brand new who are learning what rehearsal means. 7:00 means 7:00, not 7:30 or whatever. So we do that, and we've expanded to opportunity now. I'm really at our peak. We at one time we were white, Black, Asian, Latin, straight, gay, Bible thumper, atheist. All, if you name it, we were that. The company slimmed down a little bit now, but yeah, we're all about opportunity. We're all about giving audiences opportunities to see things that other theater companies wouldn't do. And we're all about giving actors and directors opportunity to work with people and with stories that they wouldn't get a chance to do at other houses. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing with me. That all of this sounds really interesting and cool. Sorry. I guess that is all of my like interview questions. So I'm
Okay.
gonna stop the recording, but I do have one more thing to ask.
Okay, cool.